A little girl runs up to a stranger crying out, "Sir, he is hurting my mommy in the bathroom." What starts as a simple act of kindness leads to something much darker. The man steps in to save her, but the truth he uncovers is more twisted than he could ever imagine. Her abusive ex-husband has been stalking her for years, and now she's fighting to escape him, with nothing left but fear and broken promises. But just as they begin to find hope in each other, the ex strikes back, more dangerous than ever. Will the CEO risk everything to protect them? And what happens when love and danger collide in a fight for survival? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and if this story speaks to you, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The gleaming marble floors of the Grand Plaza Hotel reflected the warm afternoon light as Hudson Fields adjusted his Italian silk tie. The 48-year-old CEO had organized countless business conferences, but something about today felt different. Maybe it was the way the sunlight caught the crystal chandeliers, or perhaps it was just his sixth sense for business, telling him this conference would be special. He checked his Rolex watch, still 30 minutes before the conference was set to begin. Perfect timing to review his opening speech one last time. The lobby buzzed with the usual mix of business professionals and tourists, their quiet conversations creating a pleasant hum in the background. That's when he heard it. Small footsteps running across the polished floor, accompanied by the sound of sniffling. Hudson turned to see a little girl, probably no more than 4 years old, her dark curls bouncing as she ran straight toward him. Her pink dress was slightly rumpled, and her face was wet with tears. "Sir," she cried out, her tiny hands reaching up toward him. "He is hurting my mommy in the bathroom." Hudson's heart stopped for a moment. The conference, his speech, the whole business world suddenly disappeared. All he could see was this terrified child looking up at him with desperate eyes. "Where's your mommy, sweetheart?" he asked, immediately kneeling down to her level. His voice was gentle, but his mind was already racing through possible scenarios. "The ladies' room." She pointed with a trembling finger toward the hallway near the hotel restaurant. The bad man followed her in there. Without hesitation, Hudson stood up. "Stay right here," he told the little girl, but she grabbed onto his pant leg. "Please help my mommy," she begged, her voice breaking. "I will," he promised, and this time he meant it more than any business deal he'd ever made. "Come with me, but stay behind me, okay?" They moved quickly through the lobby, Hudson's long strides measured to allow the little girl to keep up. As they approached the ladies' room, he could hear muffled voices, a man's angry growls, and a woman's frightened protests. Hudson's protective instincts surged. He was no stranger to confrontation in the boardroom, but this was different. This was raw and real, and someone was in genuine danger. Without hesitation, he pushed open the door. The scene before him made his blood boil. A man had a woman backed against the wall, his hands gripping her arms so tightly that Hudson could see the skin turning white under the pressure. The woman's face was tear-stained, her dark hair disheveled, and fear radiated from her entire being. "Let her go!" Hudson's voice boomed through the bathroom, commanding and firm. The man turned, revealing an angry, flushed face. "Mind your own business," the man snarled. "This is between me and my wife." "Ex-wife," the woman corrected, her voice shaking but determined. "Let me go, Derek, please." Hudson stepped forward, his 6'2" frame towering over Derek. "You heard her. Let her go, now." When Derek's grip only tightened, Hudson didn't hesitate. He moved swiftly, his years of martial arts training coming into play as he carefully but firmly broke Derek's hold on the woman's arms. In one smooth motion, he positioned himself between them, creating a human shield for the terrified woman. "Mommy!" the little girl cried out, running past Hudson to her mother, who scooped her up with trembling arms. You can't keep my son from me, Derek shouted, trying to step around Hudson, who stood firm. Your son? Hudson's voice was ice cold. Is that why you're terrorizing a woman in a hotel bathroom? Right then, the bathroom door burst open again as 2 security guards rushed in, their radios crackling. Someone must have heard the commotion and called them. Hudson had never been so glad to see uniforms in his life. This man, Hudson pointed to Derek, was assaulting this woman. I witnessed it myself. The security guards moved quickly, each taking one of Derek's arms. Despite his protests and threats, they began escorting him out of the bathroom. We'll need statements from both of you, one guard said over his shoulder to Hudson and the woman. As Derek's angry voice faded down the hallway, Hudson turned to the woman and her daughter. She was still shaking, holding her little girl close to her chest. Are you all right? He asked softly, maintaining a respectful distance. She nodded, though tears still glistened in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I'm Tasha, and this is Emma. I don't know what would have happened if... Don't think about that, Hudson said gently. You're safe now, both of you. Emma lifted her head from her mother's shoulder and gave Hudson a watery smile. You helped my mommy, she said simply, with all the straightforward gratitude only a child could express. Hudson felt something shift in his chest, a protective instinct he didn't even know he possessed. This woman and her daughter had awakened something in him, something that went far beyond the simple act of stepping in to help. Let me call someone for you, he offered. Family, friends, or I can arrange for a hotel room if you need somewhere safe to stay. Tasha shook her head, finally regaining some composure. No, thank you. I have my own room here. I'm actually attending the business conference. She trailed off, looking down at her now wrinkled blouse and disheveled appearance. The Fields Innovation Conference? Hudson asked, surprised. Yes. She managed a small smile. I'm representing my company's marketing department. Or at least I was supposed to. You still can, Hudson said firmly. Don't let him take that from you, too. He pulled out his business card and handed it to her. I'm Hudson Fields, and I insist you call me if you need anything, any time, day, or night. Tasha's eyes widened as she read the card, realization dawning on her face. You're the CEO, the conference organizer? Hudson nodded, suddenly feeling slightly self-conscious. Yes, but right now, I'm just someone who wants to make sure you and your daughter are safe. A hotel manager appeared at the door, looking concerned. Mr. Fields, the conference. Give me 5 minutes, Hudson said, not taking his eyes off Tasha and Emma. The manager nodded and disappeared. I should let you go, Tasha said, adjusting Emma on her hip. You have a conference to run. Are you sure you'll be okay? Hudson asked, genuine concern in his voice. Tasha nodded, more firmly this time. Yes, thank you. You've already done so much. She looked down at his card, then back at him. I never expected the CEO of Fields Innovation to be my knight in shining armor today. Sometimes life surprises us. Hudson said softly. Please promise me you'll call if you need anything. I promise, Tasha said, and for the first time, a real smile crossed her face, small and shaky, but genuine. As Hudson walked back to the conference hall, his mind kept returning to Tasha and Emma. The conference suddenly seemed less important than making sure they were truly safe. He made a mental note to have hotel security keep an extra eye on their room and to check on them personally after the conference. Some things, he realized, were more important than business deals and innovation speeches. Sometimes the most significant moments in life came from simply being in the right place at the right time, ready to help someone in need. After the security guards had escorted Derek away, Hudson gently guided Tasha and Emma toward a quiet corner of the hotel's elegant lounge. Plush leather armchairs created a private sanctuary away from the bustling conference crowds. Soft classical music played in the background, helping to create a calming atmosphere. "Would you like some water?" Hudson asked, motioning to a nearby server. Tasha nodded, still trembling slightly as she settled Emma on her lap. The server quickly brought over a pitcher of ice water and 3 glasses. Hudson poured one for Tasha, then a smaller amount for Emma, who had finally stopped crying but remained clingy to her mother. "Take your time," Hudson said softly, sitting across from them. "You're safe here." Tasha took a long sip of water, then set the glass down with shaking hands. "I'm sorry you got caught up in all this," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Derek, he's been making my life a nightmare for years now." Hudson leaned forward slightly, his expression compassionate. "You don't need to apologize. Would you feel comfortable telling me more about what's been happening?" Tasha drew in a deep breath, absently stroking Emma's hair. "It started even before our divorce 3 years ago. Derek, he has a way of making everything seem like it's my fault. The emotional abuse was subtle at first. Little comments here and there, controlling behavior, isolation from friends and family." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Emma had dozed off in her lap, exhausted from the emotional ordeal. "I have a 6-year-old son, too. Elijah. He's with my mother right now." Tasha continued, her voice cracking. "Derek never physically hurt the kids, but the psychological impact—" She wiped away a tear. "Elijah still has nightmares. He gets so scared whenever he hears loud voices." Hudson's jaw tightened as he listened, his hands clasped together to keep them from showing his growing anger at Derek's actions. "After I finally got the courage to leave, things got worse," Tasha explained. "Derek started showing up at my workplace, sending threatening messages, following me to the grocery store. He'd just appear, anywhere and everywhere. The police said they couldn't do anything without proof of actual threats or violence." She took another sip of water, her hands steadier now. "I changed jobs, moved apartments twice, but he always finds us. Today was supposed to be my big chance. This conference could mean a promotion, a fresh start for me and my kids. But Derek—" Her voice trembled again. "He found out you were here." Hudson finished quietly. Tasha nodded. "I don't even know how. I was so careful not to post anything on social media, didn't tell anyone except my direct supervisor." "Have you considered filing for a restraining order?" Hudson asked carefully. "I tried once, right after the divorce," Tasha replied, frustration evident in her voice. "But Derek hired this really expensive lawyer who somehow convinced the judge there wasn't enough evidence. Made it sound like I was being paranoid, exaggerating things." Hudson sat up straighter, a determined look crossing his face. "I have connections with some of the best lawyers in the city. They owe me favors. What happened today, that's evidence. We have security footage, witnesses. I'll testify myself if needed." Tasha looked up, surprise and uncertainty mixing in her expression. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." "Because what Derek's doing is wrong," Hudson said firmly. "No one should have to live in fear, especially not a mother trying to protect her children." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I know accepting help from a stranger might feel risky, but I promise you, my only agenda is helping you and your children feel safe." Tasha was quiet for a long moment, studying Hudson's face. She saw nothing but sincerity in his eyes, a genuine desire to help, that reminded her that good people still existed in the world. "I'm scared," she admitted finally. "Derek has so many connections, so much influence. Every time I've tried to stand up to him, he's found a way to make things worse." "You don't have to face him alone anymore," Hudson assured her. "I can have my legal team start working on the restraining order today. We'll document everything. Today's incident, all the past stalking, the emotional abuse. We'll build a case so strong that even Derek's expensive lawyer won't be able to tear it down." Emma stirred in Tasha's lap, blinking sleepily. "Mommy, is the bad man gone?" "Yes, sweetheart," Tasha soothed, kissing her daughter's forehead. "He's gone." She looked back at Hudson, and for the first time, he saw a spark of hope in her eyes. "Okay," she said quietly but firmly. "I'll accept your help, for my kids, for myself. I can't keep living like this." Hudson pulled out his phone. "I'll make some calls right now. We can meet with my lawyer this afternoon if you're comfortable with that." He paused, then added gently, "The conference can wait. This is more important." Tasha's eyes welled with tears again, but these were different. Tears of relief, of feeling supported for the first time in years. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "Live your life without fear," Hudson replied simply. "That's all the repayment I need." As Hudson began making calls, Tasha held Emma close, feeling something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, with Hudson's help, she could finally break free from Derek's toxic influence and create the safe, happy life her children deserved. The classical music continued to play softly in the background, and for the first time that day, Tasha felt her shoulders relax. She watched as Hudson spoke quietly but firmly on the phone, already setting things in motion to help her. In this peaceful corner of the hotel lounge, surrounded by the gentle murmur of distant conversations and the comforting presence of someone who genuinely wanted to help, Tasha allowed herself to believe that change was possible. Hudson couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Tasha's frightened face and her daughter's tears. The luxury of his penthouse apartment felt hollow as he paced the polished hardwood floors, his mind racing with concern for their safety. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he found himself standing at his floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. The incident at the hotel had shaken something loose inside him, a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. He couldn't shake the feeling that Tasha and her children weren't, safe wherever they were staying. As soon as dawn broke, Hudson picked up his phone. He'd gotten Tasha's number yesterday while arranging the lawyer meeting, but he hesitated before dialing. Would she think he was overstepping? The thought vanished when he remembered the terror in her eyes. The phone rang 4 times before Tasha answered, her voice cautious. "Hello. Tasha, it's Hudson Fields," he said, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I hope I didn't wake you." "No, I haven't really slept," she admitted quietly. Hudson's grip tightened on his phone. "Listen, I've been thinking. My house, it's more of a mansion really, has plenty of room, and it's in a gated community with top-notch security. I want you and your children to stay there until we get everything sorted out legally." There was a long pause on the other end. That's very generous, but I couldn't impose—" "It's not an imposition," Hudson interrupted gently. "I have 6 bedrooms sitting empty. The security system is state-of-the-art, and there's a playground in the backyard that hasn't seen any use since my nieces visited last summer." He heard Tasha take a shaky breath. "I don't know. It seems like too much." "Where are you staying now?" Hudson asked, though he dreaded the answer. "A motel," she whispered. "It was all I could afford after everything." Hudson closed his eyes, his fears confirmed. "Please, Tasha, let me help. You and your children deserve to feel safe." Another long pause followed. Then, "What about Elijah? He's at my friend's house right now." Of course he should come too. There's plenty of room for everyone. I can send my driver to pick him up wherever he is. Hudson could almost hear Tasha's internal struggle over the line. Finally, she spoke, her voice small but determined. Okay, yes, thank you. Within 2 hours, Hudson's driver had collected Tasha and Emma from their motel, then picked up 6-year-old Elijah from Tasha's friend's house. Hudson met them at the front door of his colonial-style mansion, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible in casual weekend clothes. Elijah held tight to his mother's hand, his big brown eyes taking in the sprawling house with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. It's like a castle, he whispered. Hudson knelt down to the boy's eye level. Would you like to see your room? It has a view of the playground. Elijah looked up at his mother for permission. When Tasha nodded, a small smile appeared on his face. As they toured the house, Hudson noticed how Tasha's shoulders gradually began to relax. The security cameras, the coded gate entry, the alarm system, each feature seemed to ease a fraction of her tension. "This will be your room?" Hudson said, opening a door to reveal a spacious bedroom decorated in soothing blues and greens. Elijah's room is right next door, and Emma's is across the hall. My room is at the other end of the house, so you'll have complete privacy. Tasha stood in the doorway, clutching her small overnight bag. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. Hudson assured her. Get settled in, and then we can start making those calls. My lawyer is expecting us at 2 o'clock. Left alone to unpack, Tasha sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, tears welling in her eyes. Through the window, she could hear Elijah's delighted laughter as he discovered the playground, accompanied by the gentle voice of Hudson's housekeeper, who had offered to watch the children. Hudson retreated to his home office, making call after call. His lawyer, his security team, his personal assistant, everyone was mobilized to help protect Tasha and her children. As he worked, he could hear the distant sounds of life returning to his too-quiet house. Emma's giggles, Elijah's excited chatter, the housekeeper's warm responses. Around noon, there was a soft knock at his office door. Tasha stood there, looking more composed but still vulnerable. The children are having lunch with Mrs. Martinez, she said. I thought maybe we could start those calls you mentioned. Hudson nodded, gesturing to a comfortable chair beside his desk. Of course, I've already spoken with my lawyer. She's gathering everything we need for the restraining order. We just need to document your history with Derek. Dates, incidents, witnesses. Tasha's hands trembled as she sat down, but her voice was steady as she began to speak. For the next hour, Hudson helped her compile a detailed record of Derek's harassment and abuse. Each incident was carefully noted, each threat documented. When Tasha's voice would shake or she'd struggle to continue, Hudson would give her time to collect herself, offering quiet support and gentle encouragement. You're doing great, he assured her after a particularly difficult memory. Each detail helps build our case. Tasha wiped her eyes with a tissue. I never thought I'd be strong enough to do this. You've always been strong, Hudson said firmly. You've protected your children all this time. Now you're just getting the support you deserve. Through the window, they could see Elijah and Emma playing on the swings, their laughter carrying across the manicured lawn. Tasha watched them for a moment, drawing strength from their joy. They seem happy here, she observed quietly. Hudson smiled. They deserve to be happy. So do you. As they prepared to leave for the lawyer's office, Hudson couldn't help but notice how different Tasha looked from the frightened woman he'd met yesterday. There was still fear in her eyes, still trauma to work through, but there was also something else now. Determination. She was ready to fight for her freedom, and this time, she wouldn't be fighting alone. The security system beeped softly as they prepared to leave, a reminder of the safe haven they were temporarily leaving. But Hudson knew that with each step they took today, each call made, each document filed, they were building something more permanent than physical walls. They were building a future where Tasha and her children could live without fear. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Hudson's kitchen as he paced back and forth, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, I know it's last minute," he said to his personal chef, "but I'd really appreciate it if you could prepare something special tonight." He paused, listening. "Nothing too fancy. Comfortable elegance, if you know what I mean." After ending the call, Hudson found himself straightening pictures in the dining room that were already perfectly straight. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this nervous about dinner. Usually, business meals were straightforward affairs, negotiations disguised as pleasantries. But this was different. In the guest wing, Tasha sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the text message Hudson had sent earlier. "Would you join me for dinner tonight? Just the two of us. Mrs. Martinez offered to watch the children." Her thumb hovered over the screen as she considered her response. "You should go," came a voice from the doorway. Mrs. Martinez, the kind-faced housekeeper, stood there with a gentle smile. "The children will be fine with me. We're planning a movie night with popcorn." Tasha took a deep breath and typed, "Yes, thank you," before she could change her mind. At 7 o'clock, Tasha made her way to the main dining room. She'd borrowed a simple black dress from the clothes Hudson had arranged to be delivered earlier that day. The fabric felt soft against her skin, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place in such luxury. Hudson was waiting by the table, dressed casually in dark slacks and a light blue button-down shirt with rolled-up sleeves. His face brightened when he saw her. "You look lovely," he said, pulling out a chair for her. "Thank you," Tasha replied, smoothing her dress as she sat. "This is quite something." She gestured to the elegant table setting, the soft lighting, and the gentle classical music playing in the background. "I hope it's not too much," Hudson said, taking his seat across from her. "I wanted it to be special, but comfortable." The first course arrived, a light soup that smelled of herbs and comfort. As they began to eat, Hudson noticed how Tasha seemed to relax slightly with each spoonful. "This reminds me of my grandmother's cooking," she said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. "She used to make soup every Sunday, no matter how hot it was outside." Hudson leaned forward, interested. "Tell me about your family." Tasha's eyes softened with memory. "We didn't have much growing up, but we had each other. My parents worked multiple jobs to keep us afloat, but somehow my mom always managed to have dinner ready every night. All 6 of us would squeeze around this tiny kitchen table." "6?" Hudson asked, genuinely curious. "My parents, my 3 siblings, and me," Tasha explained. "I'm the youngest. My oldest brother used to carry me on his shoulders everywhere until I got too big. He still tries sometimes at family gatherings," she added with a laugh. As the main course arrived, perfectly cooked salmon with roasted vegetables, Hudson found himself captivated by Tasha's stories. She spoke about summer afternoons spent playing baseball in the street with neighborhood kids, about her father teaching her to change a tire when she was 12, about her mother's dedication to making sure all 4 children got their homework done each night. "Your family sounds wonderful," Hudson said softly. Tasha nodded, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. "They are. She hesitated. "They wanted to help when things got bad with Derek, but I was too proud, too ashamed to let them." Hudson reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but offering the gesture of support. "You were protecting them too, weren't you?" "Derek had a way of threatening everyone I loved," she admitted. "It seemed safer to distance myself." The conversation shifted as Hudson shared stories from his own past, growing up as an only child, the pressure of taking over his father's company, the loneliness of success. He found himself telling her things he rarely shared with anyone. "Sometimes," he confessed, "I look around this huge house and wonder what it's all for. Until recently, it was just Emma and me rattling around in here like two peas in a very large pod." Tasha smiled. "Emma's lucky to have you. I see how you are with her. So patient, so present." "I'm trying," Hudson said. "After her mother left, I promised myself I'd be there for every moment I could. Sometimes I worry it's not enough." "It's enough," Tasha assured him. "Trust me, I know what not enough looks like, and you're doing just fine." As dessert arrived, warm apple, crisp with vanilla ice cream, Hudson noticed how Tasha's gestures had become more animated, her smile more frequent. She was beautiful when she felt safe. He realized, when she didn't have to guard every word and movement. They talked about lighter things, too. Favorite movies, embarrassing moments, dreams they'd had as children. Hudson found himself laughing more than he had in months, maybe years. "I wanted to be a professional basketball player," he admitted, despite being absolutely terrible at basketball. "At least that's achievable," Tasha countered. "I wanted to be a mermaid." Their laughter echoed in the large dining room, making it feel warmer, more lived in. As the evening drew to a close, they moved to the terrace. The night air was cool but pleasant, and the garden lights created a magical atmosphere. They could hear faint giggles from somewhere in the house, the children enjoying their movie night. "Thank you for dinner," Tasha said, wrapping her arms around herself. Without a word, Hudson slipped off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Thank you for joining me," he replied, "and for sharing your stories." Their eyes met for a moment, and Hudson felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to draw her closer. But he saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, the subtle way she shifted her weight, and he understood. She wasn't ready, might not be ready for a long time, and that was okay. Instead, he smiled warmly and said, "We should check on the kids, make sure they haven't convinced Mrs. Martinez to let them watch horror movies." Tasha's relieved smile told him he'd made the right choice. As they walked back inside, Hudson felt content knowing that while this evening might not have led where part of him had hoped, it had led exactly where it needed to go, toward understanding, toward trust, toward whatever gentle future might unfold in its own time. Hudson stood in his home office, methodically packing his laptop and documents into his leather briefcase. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floor. He had a 3-day business trip to Chicago coming up, and while he was used to these regular travels, something felt different this time. The thought of leaving the mansion, leaving Tasha and Elijah, created an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. He double-checked his passport and plane tickets, arranging them neatly in the front pocket of his briefcase. The sound of small footsteps in the hallway caught his attention, and he looked up to see Elijah standing in the doorway. The 6-year-old boy was still in his pajamas, his dark hair tousled from sleep, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. "Good morning, buddy," Hudson said warmly, setting down his briefcase. "You're up early." Elijah shuffled into the office, his sock-covered feet making soft sounds against the floor. "Are you going away?" he asked, his brown eyes fixed on the packed briefcase. "Just for a few days," Hudson assured him. "I have some meetings in Chicago." Elijah nodded slowly, processing this information. He moved closer to Hudson's desk, running his small hand along the smooth wooden edge. "Mommy says you're my daddy," he said suddenly, his voice carrying that peculiar mix of innocence and conviction that only children can manage. Hudson felt his heart skip a beat. He carefully kept his expression neutral, even as his mind raced to process the child's words. Through the open door, he caught a glimpse of movement. Tasha had appeared in the hallway, likely having followed her son. Her face had gone stark white at Elijah's words. Hudson managed a gentle laugh, trying to keep the moment light. "Well, that's quite a thought, isn't it?" he said, kneeling down to Elijah's level. "What made you think that?" Before Elijah could answer, Tasha rushed into the room. "Elijah, sweetie," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I never said that. You must have misunderstood." The boy looked confused, clutching his dinosaur tighter. "But you said he takes care of us like a daddy should, and he makes you smile like in the pictures with old daddy before he got mean." Tasha's cheeks flushed deep red. "I'm so sorry, Hudson," she said quickly. He's been asking about fathers a lot lately, ever since we came here." Hudson stood up slowly, his knees protesting slightly. "It's okay," he said softly. "Really, it's perfectly understandable." Elijah looked between the two adults, sensing the tension but not quite understanding it. "Don't you want to be my daddy?" he asked Hudson, his lower lip beginning to quiver. The question hit Hudson like a physical force. He glanced at Tasha, who looked like she wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. With careful consideration, he addressed Elijah again. "You know what, buddy? Being a daddy is a very special thing," he explained. "It's not something that just happens overnight, but what I can tell you is that I care about you and your mom very much, and I'll always be here to help take care of you both." Tasha placed her hands on Elijah's shoulders. "Sweetheart, why don't you go get dressed for breakfast? Mrs. Martinez is making pancakes." The mention of pancakes was enough to distract Elijah, and he nodded eagerly. "Can I have chocolate chips in mine?" "We'll see," Tasha said, giving him a gentle push towards the door. "Go on now." Once Elijah had left the room, Tasha turned to Hudson, wringing her hands. "I am so sorry about that," she said. I would never presume—" Hudson held up a hand to stop her apologies. "Tasha, please, you don't need to apologize. Kids say what they feel. It's just—" She paused, collecting her thoughts. Since we've been here, he's been different. Happier. More like his old self. And yes, we've talked about what a good father should be like, because he needs to understand that what Derek did wasn't normal or okay. But I never meant to put any pressure on you or create expectations. Hudson moved around his desk, leaning against it as he considered his words carefully. I understand that Elijah is looking for stability, for a father figure. It's natural, given what he's been through. And honestly, I'm honored that he feels safe enough here to even think of me that way. Tasha's eyes welled with tears. You've been so kind to us, Hudson. Sometimes I worry that we're taking advantage of that kindness. You're not, he said firmly. Having you both here, it's changed things. This house feels more like a home now. Emma has someone to play with. There's laughter in the hallways. Even Mrs. Martinez is happier, having more people to fuss over. A small smile broke through Tasha's worried expression. She does love to fuss, doesn't she? Indeed she does. Hudson agreed, relieved to see some of the tension leaving Tasha's shoulders. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the morning's events. Through the open window, they could hear birds singing in the garden, and somewhere in the house, Elijah's excited voice carried as he presumably told Mrs. Martinez about his pancake preferences. I should go make sure he's actually getting dressed, Tasha said finally. And you have a plane to catch. Hudson nodded, picking up his briefcase again. I'll be back in 3 days. Please call me if you need anything. Anything at all. As Tasha turned to leave, she paused in the doorway. Thank you, she said softly. For understanding. For everything. Hudson watched her go, feeling the weight of Elijah's innocent words settling around his heart. The bond that was forming between them all was undeniable, even if its exact nature remained undefined. For now, that would have to be enough. Hudson sat in his home office, his fingers drumming steadily on the polished mahogany desk as he listened to his lawyer friend speak through the speakerphone. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the room. "I've found the perfect attorney for Tasha's case," his friend said. "Margaret Chen. She's handled dozens of cases like this, and she's got a 98% success rate with restraining orders." "Cost isn't an issue," Hudson replied immediately. "I want the best protection possible for Tasha and Elijah." "I figured as much." His friend chuckled. "I'll set up a meeting for tomorrow morning." After ending the call, Hudson walked to Tasha's temporary room and knocked gently on the door. She opened it, already dressed for the day in simple jeans and a blue sweater. "I've arranged for you to meet with a lawyer tomorrow," he said. "Margaret Chen. She specializes in cases like yours." Tasha's expression shifted, a familiar wall going up. "Hudson, I appreciate the thought, but I can't afford a top lawyer right now. I'm covering it," he said simply. "No." Tasha shook her head firmly. "That's too much. You've already done so much for us." Hudson fought back his frustration. "Tasha, please, this isn't about money. It's about keeping you and Elijah safe." She wrapped her arms around herself, a defensive gesture he'd noticed she often made when feeling vulnerable. "I need to handle this on my own. I can't keep depending on you." "Why not?" The words came out sharper than he intended. "Why is it so wrong to accept help when you need it?" "Because I've been dependent before," she said quietly. "On Derek. He used that dependency to control me, to make me feel like I couldn't survive without him." Hudson's expression softened. "I'm not Derek. I know that," she said quickly. "But I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet." "Standing on your own feet doesn't mean you have to face everything alone." Hudson countered. He ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair, searching for the right words. "Look, think of it this way. If you saw someone drowning, wouldn't you throw them a life preserver?" Tasha nodded slowly. "That's all I'm doing here." He continued. "I'm not trying to control you or make you dependent on me. I'm just throwing you a life preserver while you learn to swim again." A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "That's a pretty good analogy. I have my moments," he said, returning her smile. "Just come to the meeting tomorrow. Listen to what Margaret has to say. If you still want to handle it on your own after that, I'll respect your decision." Tasha considered this for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll go to the meeting." The next morning, they sat in Margaret Chen's elegant office. The lawyer was a sharp-featured woman in her 50s, with keen eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Mr. Fields has briefed me on your situation," Margaret said, her voice steady and professional. "We have more than enough evidence to secure a permanent restraining order against your ex-husband." Tasha twisted her hands in her lap. "Derek has money. He's got his own lawyers." "So do we," Margaret replied firmly. "And more importantly, we have documentation of his harassment, witness statements from the hotel incident, and a history of his behavior. The law is on our side." As Margaret outlined their strategy, Hudson watched Tasha carefully. He could see her shoulders gradually relaxing as the lawyer spoke, hope beginning to replace the worry in her eyes. After the meeting, they walked together through the busy downtown streets. "She seems very competent," Tasha said finally. "She is," Hudson agreed. "Will you let her help?" Tasha stopped walking, turning to face him. Yes, she said. But I want to contribute something. I can't pay much, but… How about this? Hudson interrupted. You focus on healing and building a stable life for you and Elijah. That's your contribution. She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she just nodded. Thank you, Hudson, for everything. Over the next few weeks, as they worked with Margaret to build their case, Hudson and Tasha fell into a comfortable routine. They would have breakfast together with Elijah. Then Hudson would work from his home office while Tasha looked for jobs online. In the evenings, they often found themselves talking for hours after Elijah went to bed. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching the sunset, Tasha turned to Hudson. I got a job offer today, she said. It's an administrative position at a local non-profit. That's wonderful, Hudson said sincerely, even as his heart sank at the thought that she might move out soon. It doesn't pay much, she continued, but it's a start, and they're willing to be flexible with my hours so I can work around Elijah's school schedule. When do you start? Next Monday, she said, then hesitated. I know I should start looking for an apartment. There's no rush, Hudson said quickly. You're both welcome to stay here as long as you need to. Tasha gave him a long look. You can't keep putting your life on hold for us forever. I'm not putting anything on hold, he said. Having you and Elijah here, it's made this house feel alive again. I didn't even realize how lonely it was before. She reached over and squeezed his hand briefly. Still, I need to start making plans for the future. Hudson understood what she wasn't saying. She needed to prove she could make it on her own. But he also knew that their lives had become intertwined in ways neither of them had expected. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the garden in soft purple light, they sat in comfortable silence. Hudson thought about how naturally Tasha and Elijah had fitted into his life, how their presence had filled a void he hadn't even known existed. He wanted to tell her this, wanted to ask her to stay not just temporarily, but permanently. But he knew she wasn't ready for that conversation yet. For now, he would continue to be there for her, supporting her journey to independence while hoping that someday she might choose to share her life with him, not out of necessity, but out of love. The morning of the court hearing dawned cold and grey. Tasha stood in front of her bedroom mirror at Hudson's mansion, adjusting her navy blue blazer for the 10th time. Her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed down the fabric. The outfit was new. Hudson had insisted on getting her proper courtroom attire, despite her protests. A gentle knock at her door made her turn. "Come in," she called out. Hudson stepped inside, looking sharp in his charcoal grey suit. His face softened with concern when he saw her nervous fidgeting. "How are you holding up?" "I'm scared," Tasha admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if the judge doesn't believe me? What if Derek's lawyers twist everything around?" Hudson crossed the room and placed his hands on her shoulders, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Remember what Margaret said. We have solid evidence. The hotel incident alone is enough for a temporary restraining order, and I'll be right there with you." Tasha nodded, drawing strength from his steady presence. "Elijah's all set for school? Mrs. Rodriguez is driving him right now," Hudson assured her, referring to his trusted housekeeper. "He's got his lunch and his homework. Everything's taken care of." The drive to the courthouse was quiet, with Tasha staring out the window while Hudson occasionally glanced at her with concern. Their lawyer, Margaret Chen, met them at the courthouse steps, her briefcase bulging with documents. "Are you ready?" Margaret asked, her professional demeanor helping to ground Tasha. The courthouse lobby was bustling with activity, but Tasha barely noticed the crowd. Her attention was immediately drawn to Derek, who stood near the courtroom entrance with his lawyer. He wore an expensive suit that seemed designed to project an image of respectability. But his eyes told a different story, When he caught sight of Tasha, his face twisted into a sneer. Hudson instinctively stepped closer to Tasha, placing himself between her and Derek's line of sight. She grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into his sleeve. "He can't hurt you anymore," Hudson murmured. "We're going to make sure of that today." Inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Tasha sat between Hudson and Margaret, trying to keep her breathing steady as the judge reviewed their petition. Derek and his lawyer sat on the opposite side, and she could feel his eyes boring into her. "Your Honor," Margaret began, her voice clear and confident. "We are seeking a temporary restraining order against Mr. Derek Matthews on behalf of my client, Ms. Tasha Wilson. Mr. Matthews has demonstrated a pattern of harassment and threatening behavior." As Margaret presented their case, she methodically laid out the evidence. The hotel incident witnessed by Hudson and security personnel, text messages showing Derek's threats, police reports from previous incidents, and statements from witnesses who had seen Derek following Tasha. Derek's lawyer, a sharp-featured man named James Kendrick, stood up to challenge their petition. "Your Honor, my client merely wishes to maintain contact with his former wife. These alleged incidents have been greatly exaggerated." Tasha felt her chest tighten as Kendrick tried to paint Derek as a misunderstood man who only wanted reconciliation. She watched as the lawyer attempted to minimize the hotel incident, suggesting it was a simple misunderstanding blown out of proportion. When it was Tasha's turn to speak, her voice initially quavered, but grew stronger as she described the years of harassment and fear. "I just want to live in peace, Your Honor," she concluded. "I want my son to grow up feeling safe." Derek's face darkened at the mention of Elijah, and he leaned forward to whisper something to his lawyer. The gesture made Tasha's skin crawl. After what felt like hours, the judge looked up from his notes. "Based on the evidence presented, I find sufficient cause to grant a temporary restraining order. Mr. Matthews is to maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Ms. Wilson and her son. This order will remain in effect until the hearing for a permanent order scheduled for 30 days from today." Relief flooded through Tasha, but it was short-lived. As they stood to leave, Derek's voice carried across the courtroom. "This isn't over, Tasha." "Mr. Matthews," the judge warned sharply, "comments like that are not helping your case." Hudson guided Tasha out of the courtroom, his hand protective at the small of her back. Margaret walked with them to their car, reviewing the next steps and scheduling a meeting to prepare for the permanent order hearing. The drive back to Hudson's mansion was quiet again, but for different reasons. Tasha seemed lost in thought, occasionally glancing in the rearview mirror as if expecting to see Derek's car following them. That evening, after Elijah was tucked into bed, Tasha found Hudson in his study. He looked up from his laptop as she entered, immediately noting her troubled expression. "I can't stop thinking about the way he looked at me," she said, sinking into one of the leather chairs. When the judge mentioned Elijah, "Hudson, I'm scared he might try something before the permanent order hearing." Hudson closed his laptop and moved to sit beside her. "Talk to me." "Derek's always been vindictive," she explained, wrapping her arms around herself. "When things don't go his way, he lashes out. And now, with this order against him, he's going to be furious." Her voice cracked. "What if he tries to hurt Elijah to get back at me?" "That's not going to happen," Hudson said firmly. "I've already increased security around the house. Mrs. Rodriguez knows not to let Elijah go with anyone but us, and I've spoken with his school about the situation." Tears welled up in Tasha's eyes. "I hate this. I hate that he still has this power over me, that even with a restraining order, I'm still afraid." "Your fear is valid," Hudson said gently. "But you're not alone anymore. You have me, you have Margaret, you have a whole team of people working to keep you and Elijah safe." Tasha wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. Maybe if I had just stayed quiet, just let him have his way." "No," Hudson interrupted, his voice firm but kind. "You're showing incredible courage by standing up to him. You're showing Elijah that it's important to stand up against bullies, no matter how scary they might be." She managed a weak smile. "When did you get so wise?" "I've had some good teachers lately," he replied, returning her smile. "A certain strong woman and her brave little boy have taught me a lot about courage." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, the ticking of the study's antique clock the only sound in the room. Tasha felt her anxiety slowly ebbing away, replaced by a deep gratitude for Hudson's unwavering support. "Thank you," she said finally, "for everything. For being there today, for giving us a safe place to stay, for believing in me." "You don't need to thank me," Hudson replied softly. "Just promise me you won't give up. We're going to get through this, all of us, together." The morning sun painted golden streaks across Hudson's expansive backyard as Tasha stood at the kitchen window, coffee mug warming her hands. She watched as Hudson and Elijah played catch on the lawn, their laughter carrying through the glass. Her son's face was bright with joy as he threw the ball, his aim wild but enthusiastic. Hudson made a show of diving dramatically for each throw, no matter how far off target it went. "Got it!" Hudson called out, tumbling onto the grass. Elijah's giggles echoed across the yard. Tasha's heart squeezed at the sight. Over the past few days, moments like these had become more frequent. Hudson had started spending his mornings with them before heading to work, and his evenings were now filled with family dinners and board games instead of late nights at the office. That afternoon, Hudson suggested they take a walk through the neighborhood. The spring air was crisp and clean, cherry blossoms dotting the sidewalks with pale pink petals. Elijah ran ahead, stopping to examine interesting rocks and leaves while Tasha and Hudson walked at a slower pace. "He seems happier," Hudson observed, watching Elijah chase a butterfly. "More relaxed." Tasha nodded. "He is. He hasn't had nightmares all week." She paused, then added softly, "Having you around, it's been good for him." Hudson's hand brushed against hers as they walked, sending tiny sparks through her fingers. She pulled away instinctively, then immediately regretted it when she saw the flash of hurt in his eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It's not you, it's—" "You don't need to explain," Hudson assured her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I understand." But did he? Could he understand how her heart raced whenever he was near, how desperately she wanted to lean into his strength, and how terrified that desire made her? The memory of Derek's manipulation still haunted her, making her question her own judgment. That evening, after Elijah was asleep, Tasha found herself in Hudson's kitchen. She'd started cooking dinner for them regularly, wanting to contribute something in return for his generosity. Tonight, she was making her grandmother's lasagna recipe. Hudson came home from work early, loosening his tie as he entered the kitchen. "Something smells amazing." "It's almost ready," Tasha said, trying to ignore how domestic this felt, how right. "Would you mind setting the table?" They moved around each other in comfortable silence, Hudson gathering plates and silverware while Tasha put the finishing touches on the meal. When their hands accidentally met, reaching for the same drawer, neither pulled away immediately. Over dinner, they talked about their days. Hudson shared stories about his latest business project, and Tasha told him about Elijah's progress in school. It felt normal, peaceful, dangerous. "Tasha," Hudson said softly, after a lull in the conversation. "I want you to know that I'm not expecting anything from you. Your friendship and Elijah's means more to me than I can express." Tears pricked at her eyes. "You've done so much for us already." "That's not why I did it," he replied. "I care about you both, deeply. The weight of his words hung in the air between them. Tasha's heart hammered in her chest as she met his gaze. The kindness there, the genuine affection, made her want to run and stay forever all at once. "I care about you too," she admitted. "And that scares me." Hudson reached across the table, his hand open, palm up, an invitation, not a demand. "I know, and I'll wait as long as you need. There's no pressure here." Tasha stared at his offered hand, remembering how different Derek's promises had been, always accompanied by threats, by ultimatums. Hudson's patience, his willingness to let her set the pace, was something entirely new. The next morning, Tasha watched from the porch as Hudson taught Elijah how to ride the new bicycle he'd bought him. Her son's face was a mixture of concentration and excitement as Hudson held the back of the bike, running alongside. "You're doing great, buddy," Hudson encouraged. "Ready to try on your own?" Elijah nodded determinedly. "Don't let go yet." "I won't," Hudson promised. "Not until you're ready." The parallel wasn't lost on Tasha. She felt like Elijah on that bike, wanting to move forward but terrified of falling, trusting Hudson's steady presence behind her, but afraid to rely on it completely. As the days passed, their routine grew more comfortable. Movie nights became a regular occurrence, with Elijah nestled between them on the couch. Hudson never pushed for more, but Tasha caught him watching her sometimes with an expression that made her breath catch. One evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Hudson's phone rang. It was his assistant, calling about an urgent business matter. As he stepped away to take the call, Tasha found herself missing his presence immediately. The realization hit her hard. She was falling for him, despite all her carefully constructed walls. Later that night, she stood on the balcony outside her room, trying to sort through her feelings. The sound of footsteps behind her made her turn. "Can't sleep?" Hudson asked, joining her at the railing. Tasha shook her head. "Just thinking. About how different you are," she said quietly. "From him, from what I expected. Every time I wait for the other shoe to drop, for you to show some hidden agenda, it doesn't come." Hudson turned to face her. "It won't come, Tasha. What you see is what you get with me. I'm not perfect, but I promise you this. I will never intentionally hurt you or Elijah." The sincerity in his voice made her throat tight. She wanted so badly to believe him, to trust in the safety he offered. But the scars from her past ran deep, making her question every gentle word, every kind gesture. "I don't know how to do this," she confessed. "I don't know how to let someone in again." "Then we'll figure it out together," Hudson said softly. "One day at a time." His words hung in the night air, full of promise and possibility. Tasha felt something shift inside her, not a complete surrender of her fears, but a willingness to consider that maybe, just maybe, love didn't have to hurt. Hudson sat at his mahogany desk, reviewing quarterly reports when his office phone rang. The familiar extension of his public relations director flashed on the screen. Something in his gut told him this wasn't a routine call. "Sarah, what's the situation?" he answered, already bracing himself. "Hudson, we have a problem." Sarah's usually composed voice carried an edge of concern. "There are rumors circulating through several business networks about you and a woman named Tasha Collins." His grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of rumors?" "They're saying you're having an affair with a married woman, that you're helping her hide from her husband." Sarah paused. "It gets worse. Someone's suggesting you're using company resources to finance this arrangement." Hudson's jaw clenched. There was only one person who could be behind this: Derek. "Several of our major partners have called asking for clarification," Sarah continued. "The board is getting nervous and the press is starting to sniff around. Hudson, this could seriously impact our reputation." He rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. Send me everything you have. Every article, every social media post, every whispered rumor. I need to know what we're dealing with. After hanging up, Hudson opened his email to find dozens of screenshots and links. Each one twisted the truth more grotesquely than the last. Derek had been busy, spreading his poison through business circles, painting Hudson as a home wrecker and Tasha as an unfaithful wife. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Hudson's best friend, Michael. "Hey, you seeing all this?" Michael asked without preamble. "Yeah, I'm looking at it now." Hudson's voice was tight with anger. "Listen, man, I know the truth about Tasha and that piece of work she was married to, but these rumors, they're gaining traction. People are talking." "Let them talk," Hudson said firmly. "It's not that simple, and you know it. Your company's stock has already taken a hit this morning. Derek's playing dirty, using your reputation against you." Hudson stood up, pacing his office. "I won't let him win, Mike. I can't." "I know, just be careful and protect Tasha. This can't be easy for her." As if on cue, there was a knock on his office door. Tasha stood there, her face pale, holding her phone. She'd seen the rumors, too. "I'll call you back," Hudson told Michael, ending the call. Tasha's hands were shaking as she entered the office. "Hudson, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "No," he said firmly, crossing the room to her. "This is Derek's fault. Only his. But your company, your reputation." Tears welled in her eyes. "Everything you've worked for is being damaged because of me." "Listen to me," Hudson said, taking her trembling hands in his. "My reputation can weather this storm. What I can't weather is losing you and Elijah." "I should leave," she whispered, pulling away. "If I go, maybe Derek will stop. Maybe he'll leave you alone." "That's exactly what he wants," Hudson said, his voice fierce. "He wants to isolate you again, to make you feel like you have no choice but to run." Tasha wrapped her arms around herself, looking smaller than ever. "I can't bear watching him destroy your life, too." "Hey," Hudson said softly, stepping closer. "Look at me." When she raised her tear-filled eyes to his, he continued, "What we have, this connection, this family we're building, it's worth fighting for. I don't care about stock prices or gossip. I care about you, about Elijah, about the life we could have together." "But no buts," he interrupted gently. "We're stronger together. Derek wants to break us apart because he knows that. Together we can fight him. We can expose his lies." Hudson's phone buzzed again with another call from his PR team, but he ignored it. Instead, he reached for Tasha's hand again. "I'm not letting you run away," he said. "Not unless that's truly what you want, is it?" Tasha looked at their joined hands, then back at Hudson's face. "No," she admitted quietly. "That's not what I want." "Then we fight," Hudson said simply. "Together." Tasha's close friend, Jenny, called right then. "Tasha, honey, are you okay? I just saw all this awful stuff online." Putting the call on speaker, Tasha replied, "I'm with Hudson. We're figuring it out." "Good," Jenny said firmly. "Because if you were thinking about running away to protect him, I was going to have to talk some sense into you. Derek's counting on you doing exactly that." "That's what I just told her," Hudson said. "Smart man." Jenny approved. "Listen, Tasha, you've spent years running from Derek, letting him control your life from a distance. Maybe it's time to stand and fight." Tasha took a deep breath, squeezing Hudson's hand. "You're right. Both of you are right." After ending the call with Jenny, Hudson pulled Tasha into his arms. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in his familiar scent. "We need a plan," she said finally, pulling back to look at him. "Derek won't stop unless we make him stop." Hudson nodded. "I've already called my lawyers. We're going to fight these rumors with facts. Show them who Derek really is. Expose his pattern of harassment and manipulation. Will that be enough? It's a start, Hudson said. But more importantly, it shows him we won't back down, that we're not afraid of him anymore. Tasha straightened her shoulders, and Hudson saw a flash of the steel that had helped her survive all these years. No, she said firmly. We're not afraid. Hudson's phone rang again, this time with his lawyer on the line. Mr. Fields, I've reviewed the situation. We have a strong case for defamation, and given Mr. Collins' history of harassment, we can file for an emergency hearing to strengthen the restraining order. Do it, Hudson said without hesitation. Whatever it takes. After hanging up, he turned back to Tasha. This won't be easy. Derek's going to keep pushing, trying to break us apart. I know, she said quietly. But I'm tired of letting him win. Tired of living in fear. Hudson pulled her close again, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Then we fight. Together. Every step of the way. Their eyes met, and in that moment they both knew. This was worth fighting for. Despite Derek's attempts to tear them apart, despite the rumors and the damage to Hudson's reputation, they would stand together. Because sometimes the things worth having are the things you have to fight the hardest to keep. The evening sun cast long shadows through the windows of Hudson's mansion as Tasha stood in the garden, watching Elijah play with his toys on the manicured lawn. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions, legal battles, and growing feelings she couldn't ignore anymore. She heard Hudson's footsteps approaching on the stone path behind her. Penny for your thoughts? He asked softly, coming to stand beside her. Tasha wrapped her arms around herself, fighting the urge to lean into his warmth. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Hudson waited patiently, giving her the space to find her words. That was one of the things she'd grown to love about him, his ability to simply be present without pushing. When I first met you, she continued, I was so scared, not just of Derek, but of everything, of trusting anyone again, of letting anyone close. She turned to face him, her heart pounding. But you changed everything. Hudson's eyes softened as he looked at her. Tasha, please, let me finish, she said, taking a deep breath. I've been fighting these feelings for weeks now, telling myself it's too soon, that I'm not ready, that I'm just grateful for your help. Her voice trembled slightly. But it's more than that. So much more. She took a step closer to him, gathering her courage. Despite everything I've been through, despite all my fears of being hurt again, I can't deny how I feel anymore. When I'm with you, I feel safe. I feel whole. I feel... She paused, her eyes meeting his. I feel like I'm finally home. Hudson reached out, gently taking her hands in his. Tasha, I'm falling in love with you. She breathed out, the words rushing from her heart before fear could stop them. And it terrifies me and thrills me all at once. Hudson's face broke into a smile that lit up his entire being. Do you know how long I've wanted to hear you say that? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. I've been falling for you since that first day in the hotel. Your strength, your kindness, the way you protect Elijah with everything you have. How could I not fall in love with you? Tears spilled down Tasha's cheeks as she listened to his words. Hudson reached up, gently wiping them away with his thumb. I love you, Tasha, he said softly. I love your spirit, your resilience, your heart. I love the way you laugh when Elijah does something silly, and the way you scrunch your nose when you're thinking hard about something. I love how you fight for what's right, even when you're scared. Tasha felt something shift inside her, like the last piece of a puzzle falling into place. She moved closer, and Hudson's arms encircled her waist, drawing her to him. "I want to give you the world," he whispered. "But more than that, I want to give you the safety and happiness you deserve." Their eyes met, and time seemed to stand still. Slowly, Hudson lowered his head, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. But Tasha didn't want to pull away. Not anymore. She lifted her face to his, and their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home. The kiss was tender at first, full of the emotion they'd both been holding back for so long. Then it deepened, becoming more passionate as they both poured weeks of unspoken feelings into it. Tasha's hand slid up to Hudson's shoulders as his arms tightened around her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Tasha rested her forehead against Hudson's chest, feeling his heart beating as fast as her own. "Mommy!" Elijah's voice broke through their moment. "Look what I found!" They turned to see the little boy running towards them, holding up a colorful butterfly that had landed on his toy. The joy on his face made both of them smile. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Tasha said, kneeling down to his level. Hudson knelt beside them, and Elijah automatically leaned against him, completely comfortable in his presence. The sight made Tasha's heart swell with love and hope. But their moment of perfect happiness was shattered by the harsh ring of Hudson's phone. His face darkened as he read the message on the screen. "What is it?" Tasha asked, her stomach clenching with sudden fear. "Derek," Hudson said grimly. "He's gone to the media with more accusations. He's claiming I used my position to force you away from him, that I'm manipulating you for my own gain." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "My PR team says several major news outlets have picked up the story." Tasha felt the familiar cold grip of fear around her heart. "This is all my fault," she whispered. "No," Hudson said firmly, taking her hand. "This is Derek's fault, only his, and we're going to fight back." Just then, Hudson's phone rang again. It was his lawyer speaking rapidly about damage control and legal strategies. As he listened, Tasha could see the tension in his jaw, the worry in his eyes. "They're saying my company's stock is already dropping," he said after hanging up. "Derek's accusations are causing panic among investors." Tasha felt sick to her stomach. Just when she'd finally allowed herself to believe in happiness again, Derek was trying to destroy everything. She watched as Hudson made more calls, his voice growing increasingly tense as he tried to contain the damage to his career and reputation. "I won't let him win," Hudson said finally, turning back to her. "Not now, not when we finally found each other." But Tasha could see the toll it was taking on him, could hear the strain in his voice. Derek was escalating his campaign of destruction, and she knew from experience that he wouldn't stop until he'd torn everything apart. She held Elijah closer, watching as Hudson made yet another call. The joy of their earlier moments felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the dark cloud of Derek's revenge. But as she looked at Hudson, saw the determination in his eyes as he fought for them, she made a silent promise to herself. This time, she wouldn't run. This time, she would stay and fight. For Hudson, for Elijah, and for the happiness they all deserved. Hudson paced in his home office, his phone pressed to his ear as he spoke with his legal team. The morning sun cast long shadows across the hardwood floor, but he barely noticed the passing time. His mind was focused on one thing: protecting Tasha and Elijah. "I want everything you can find on Derek," he commanded, his voice firm. "Every complaint, every police report, every financial record. Leave no stone unturned." His best friend sat in a leather armchair nearby, watching with concern. "You're really going all in on this, aren't you?" "I have to," Hudson replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Derek's trying to destroy everything. My reputation, my company, and worst of all, Tasha's chance at happiness. I won't let him win. Within hours, his legal team began sending through documents. The evidence they uncovered was shocking. Derek had a history of domestic violence complaints from before Tasha. 3 different women had filed reports, but later dropped charges. There were also questionable financial transactions, suggesting money laundering and fraud. Hudson's hands trembled as he read through the files. "This is it," he said, spreading the papers across his desk. "This is how we fight back." His lawyers worked quickly, preparing press releases and legal documentation. By that afternoon, news outlets that had run Derek's accusations were receiving evidence of his criminal past. The story began to shift. Tasha watched from the couch as Hudson coordinated with his team. Her friend sat beside her, holding her hand for support. "He's really fighting for you," her friend whispered. "I've never seen anyone go to such lengths." Tasha nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know, that's what scares me. Derek won't take this lying down." As if on cue, Tasha's phone buzzed with a text message. Her face went pale as she read it. "What is it?" Hudson asked, immediately noticing her distress. Tasha's hands shook as she held up the phone. "It's from Derek. He says if I don't come back to him, he'll take Elijah. He knows where his school is, knows his schedule." Her voice broke. "He says he'll make sure I never see my son again." The room fell silent. Hudson's best friend stood up, fists clenched. "That's a direct threat. We should call the police." "The police never helped before," Tasha said, her voice hollow. Derek always found ways around restraining orders, always had excuses the police believed. Hudson knelt in front of Tasha, taking her trembling hands in his. "Listen to me. We're not alone in this fight anymore. I have resources, connections. We can protect Elijah." "How?" Tasha's voice cracked. "How can you guarantee my son's safety? Derek is capable of anything. He's proven that over and over." Hudson's lawyer, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Ms. Sanders, these threats against your son give us grounds for immediate legal action. We can file for an emergency protection order, and with the evidence we've uncovered about Mr. Thompson's past, we have a strong case." But Tasha wasn't listening. Her mind was racing with horrible scenarios. Derek snatching Elijah from the playground, her son crying out for her, the terror in his eyes. She stood up suddenly, pulling away from Hudson. "I have to go back," she whispered. "It's the only way to keep Elijah safe." "No." Hudson's voice was sharp with fear. "That's exactly what Derek wants. He's trying to isolate you again, to get you back under his control." "Don't you understand?" Tasha cried out, tears streaming down her face. "He's threatening my son, my baby. I would die before I let anything happen to Elijah." Hudson's best friend stepped between them. "There has to be another way. We can hire security, change Elijah's school, take precautions, and live in fear forever." Tasha shook her head. "Always looking over our shoulders, never knowing when Derek might strike?" Hudson moved closer, his voice gentle but firm. "If you go back to him, you'll be living in fear anyway, and this time, you'll be alone. Is that the life you want for Elijah? Growing up watching his mother being abused, learning that love means control and violence?" Tasha sank back onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. Her friend wrapped an arm around her shoulders, shooting Hudson a worried look. "We need to be smart about this," Hudson's lawyer said. "Mr. Thompson has made a serious mistake by putting his threats in writing. We can use this, along with the evidence of his past crimes, to build an airtight case against him." Hudson knelt again in front of Tasha, gently pulling her hands away from her face. "Look at me," he said softly. "I promise you, we will protect Elijah. I'll hire the best security team in the city. We'll make sure he's safe at school, at home, everywhere. But you have to trust me. You have to let me help you fight this." Tasha looked into his eyes, seeing the determination and love there. She thought about Elijah, about the way he smiled when Hudson helped him with his homework, about how peaceful he seemed here in this house. Could she really take him back to a life of fear and violence? "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know," Hudson said, squeezing her hands. "But you're not alone anymore. We're in this together, and together we're stronger than Derek." Tasha took a deep, shaky breath. The choice before her seemed impossible. Risk her son's safety by standing her ground, or guarantee his trauma by returning to Derek. She looked around the room at the people supporting her. Hudson, his best friend, her own friend, even Hudson's lawyer. For the first time, she wasn't facing Derek's threats alone. But the decision weighed heavily on her heart. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to protect her child at any cost. Yet another voice, one that had grown stronger since meeting Hudson, reminded her that sometimes fighting back was the best protection she could offer. Tasha lifted her head, squaring her shoulders as a newfound resolve settled over her. The tears still glistened in her eyes, but there was steel in her voice when she spoke. "No, I won't let him win, not this time." Hudson's face softened with relief and pride. "We'll face this together. But we need a real plan," Tasha's friend interjected, her practical nature coming through. "Something concrete that will keep Elijah safe while we deal with Derek." Hudson's lawyer pulled out his phone, already making calls. "I'll get our security team on this immediately. We should also contact Elijah's school, update them on the situation." For the next 2 hours, they worked methodically to create a comprehensive safety plan. Hudson's security team arrived, professional and efficient, laying out strategies for protecting both Tasha and Elijah. They discussed everything from safe routes to school to emergency protocols. "We'll have 2 guards assigned to Elijah at all times," the head of security explained, pointing to a detailed schedule. "They'll maintain a discreet distance, but they'll never let him out of their sight." Tasha listened intently, her hand gripping Hudson's. The reality of needing such extensive security measures for her 6-year-old son broke her heart, but she knew it was necessary. "What about his activities?" she asked. "He has soccer practice 3 times a week." "We'll have coverage there too," Hudson assured her. "And we're installing state-of-the-art security systems at both the house and his school." Hudson's best friend, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "What about legal action? We need to make sure Derek can't get anywhere near them." The lawyer nodded, spreading several documents across the coffee table. "I'm filing for an emergency protection order first thing tomorrow morning. With the evidence we have of his threats, plus his history of abuse, we have a strong case. We're also going to push for supervised visitation only, if any at all." Tasha felt a weight lift from her shoulders. This was different from all the times before when she'd tried to fight Derek alone. Now she had a team of people working to protect her and Elijah, each bringing their own expertise and resources to the table. "There's something else we need to consider," Hudson said gently. "We should think about moving Elijah to a different school, one with better security measures." Tasha's initial reaction was to protest. Elijah loved his school, had friends there. But as she thought about it, she realized this might be an opportunity for a fresh start for both of them. "I know a private school," Hudson continued, "with excellent security protocols already in place. They're used to handling high-profile families and their specific safety needs." Tasha's friend squeezed her hand supportively. "Change is scary, but sometimes it's necessary. And this could be good for Elijah. New opportunities, new friends." Tasha nodded slowly. "You're right. We need to think about long-term solutions, not just temporary fixes. As they continued planning, Elijah's voice drifted in from the playroom where he was being watched by one of Hudson's staff members. His laughter, pure and innocent, strengthened Tasha's resolve. This was what she was fighting for, her son's right to laugh freely, to grow up without fear. "There's one more thing," Hudson said, his voice serious. "I want to hire a child psychologist for Elijah, someone who can help him process everything that's happening." Tasha felt tears welling up again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, "for thinking of everything, for caring so much about him." Hudson pulled her close. "He's important to me too, Tasha. You both are." The lawyer cleared his throat. "We should also prepare for Derek's potential reactions to these measures. He won't take this lying down." "Let him try." Hudson's voice was hard. "Every move he makes against us will only strengthen our case against him." They spent the next hour going over contingency plans, considering every possible scenario. Tasha felt her confidence growing with each detail they addressed. This wasn't just about running away anymore. This was about standing their ground, about building a safe and stable future for Elijah. "I think it's time we called Elijah in," Tasha said finally. "He needs to understand what's happening, at least on his level." Hudson nodded, and they called Elijah into the room. The boy came running in, his face lighting up when he saw everyone. Tasha patted the spot between her and Hudson on the couch. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about some changes that are going to happen." Tasha began gently. Elijah looked between them, his young face serious. "Is this about Daddy being mad?" Tasha's heart clenched, but she kept her voice steady. "Yes, honey. We're going to do some things to make sure you're extra safe, like having special friends who will watch out for you at school and during soccer practice. Like bodyguards?" Elijah's eyes widened with interest rather than fear. Hudson chuckled softly. "Something like that, buddy. And we're thinking about a new school too, one where you can learn lots of cool new things." Elijah considered this. "Will they have a soccer team?" "An excellent one," Hudson assured him. "And a science lab, and an art studio." As they talked with Elijah, explaining things in terms he could understand, Tasha felt a surge of love for both her son and Hudson. Elijah was taking everything in stride, his natural resilience shining through. When he hugged them both before returning to his games, Tasha knew she'd made the right choice. "We're doing the right thing," Hudson said softly, as if reading her thoughts. Tasha nodded, leaning into his embrace. "Yes, we are. We're not just hiding or running anymore. We're building something stronger, something Derek can't break." The rest of the evening was spent finalizing details and setting plans in motion. Security teams were positioned, lawyers prepared documents, and arrangements were made for Elijah's new school. Through it all, Tasha felt a growing sense of empowerment. For the first time since Derek had entered her life, she wasn't a victim. She was a fighter, surrounded by people who believed in her strength. The courthouse buzzed with nervous energy as Tasha sat beside Hudson in the crowded courtroom. Her hands trembled slightly, but Hudson's steady presence next to her helped keep her grounded. The polished wooden benches were hard and uncomfortable, matching the tense atmosphere that filled the air. Derek sat at the defendant's table, wearing an expensive suit that couldn't hide the coldness in his eyes. His lawyer whispered something in his ear, but Derek's gaze remained fixed on Tasha, trying to intimidate her one last time. When the bailiff called Tasha's name, she squeezed Hudson's hand before standing. Walking to the witness stand felt like the longest journey of her life. The click of her heels against the floor echoed through the silent courtroom. "Please state your name for the record," the prosecutor began. Tasha's voice was quiet but clear. "Tasha Marie Collins." As questioning began, Tasha found her strength. She described the years of abuse in detail, the controlling behavior, the manipulation, the violence that had escalated over time. Her voice cracked when she spoke about how Derek had threatened their son, but she pressed on. "He said he would take Elijah away from me," she testified, her eyes meeting Derek's cold stare. "He said no one would ever find him." The prosecutor presented evidence of Derek's stalking: photographs, threatening text messages, security footage from the hotel incident where Hudson had intervened. With each piece of evidence, Derek's carefully constructed facade began to crack. His lawyer tried to paint Tasha as unstable, suggesting she was making up stories for attention. "Isn't it true," the defense attorney pressed, "that you're simply trying to gain sympathy from wealthy men like Mr. Fields?" "Objection!" The prosecutor's voice rang out. Argumentative. Sustained. The judge ruled firmly. Tasha's hands gripped the witness stand. "Everything I've said is true. I have lived in fear for years, always looking over my shoulder, always worried about my son's safety. I'm not here for money or attention. I'm here because Derek needs to be stopped before he hurts someone else." The breaking point came when the prosecution revealed financial records showing Derek had been embezzling money from his company to fund his harassment campaign. His face turned red with rage as his criminal activities were exposed one by one. Derek suddenly stood up, losing control. "She's lying!" he shouted, pointing at Tasha. "She's nothing without me, nothing!" The judge banged his gavel. "Order in the court! Mr. Harrison, control your client!" But Derek couldn't be contained. He lunged forward, trying to reach Tasha. Court officers rushed to restrain him as chaos erupted in the courtroom. Hudson jumped to his feet, ready to protect Tasha, but the officers had Derek in handcuffs within seconds. As Derek was led away, still shouting threats, Tasha felt her legs give out. Hudson was there immediately, supporting her, helping her back to her seat. The judge called for a brief recess to restore order. In the quiet of a private conference room, Tasha finally broke down. The weight of years of abuse and fear came pouring out in deep, racking sobs. Hudson held her close, his strong arms creating a safe haven. "It's over," he whispered, stroking her hair. "He can't hurt you anymore. You did it, Tasha. You stood up to him, and you won." Tasha's close friend, who had been watching from the gallery, brought her water and tissues. "You were so brave up there," she said, rubbing Tasha's back. "We're all so proud of you." When court resumed, the judge's verdict was swift and decisive. Derek was found guilty on multiple counts: stalking, harassment, embezzlement, and violating existing protective orders. He was led away in handcuffs, his power finally broken. But even in victory, Tasha felt the toll of the battle. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and every loud noise made her jump. The scars of trauma ran deep, and she knew healing would take time. Outside the courthouse, Hudson took both her hands in his. "I know this wasn't easy," he said softly. "But you're free now. We can build a new life, you, me, and Elijah, together." Tasha leaned into his embrace, feeling both exhausted and relieved. "I never thought this day would come," she whispered. "I was so afraid for so long. You're the strongest person I know." Hudson said, kissing her forehead gently. "And you'll never have to face anything alone again. I promise." Spring sunshine streamed through the mansion's windows as Tasha stood in the kitchen, watching Elijah play in the backyard. The boy's laughter echoed through the open French doors as he chased butterflies across the perfectly manicured lawn. 6 months had passed since the courthouse drama, and while the memories still haunted her, they were beginning to fade like old photographs. "Look, Mom," Elijah called out, waving excitedly. "I caught one." Tasha smiled. her heart warming at the sight of her son's joy. The dark circles under his eyes had disappeared, replaced by a healthy glow. He was sleeping through the night now, no longer plagued by nightmares of his father coming to take him away. Hudson appeared beside her, sliding an arm around her waist. "He's really flourishing, isn't he?" "He is," Tasha agreed, leaning into his embrace. "We both are." The therapy sessions had helped immensely. Twice a week, Tasha met with a counselor who specialized in domestic abuse recovery. Slowly, but surely she was learning to trust again, to believe in herself, and to accept that she deserved happiness. "I still flinch sometimes," she admitted quietly. "When a door slams unexpectedly or someone raises their voice." Hudson squeezed her shoulder gently. "That's okay. Healing takes time, and you're doing incredibly well." In the garden, Elijah had moved on to examining a colorful flower bed. His teacher had recently praised his improved focus in school and his growing confidence in class discussions. The stability of their new life was reflected in every aspect of his development. Tasha's close friend visited regularly, marveling at the changes she saw. During their latest lunch date, she had tears in her eyes as she watched Tasha laugh freely at a joke, something that had been rare in the past. "You're glowing," her friend had said. "It's like watching a butterfly emerge from its cocoon." The analogy felt fitting. Each day, Tasha found herself spreading her wings a little more. She had started taking online classes, working toward a degree she'd abandoned years ago when Derek had convinced her it was pointless. Hudson supported her entirely, creating a study space in his home office and watching Elijah when she needed quiet time. Their love had grown naturally, like a garden tended with care and patience. Hudson never pushed, never demanded, always letting Tasha set the pace. His gentle strength became her anchor, helping her rediscover her own power. "I'm thinking of starting a support group," Tasha said, turning to face Hudson. "For other women who've been through similar situations, to show them there's hope on the other side." Hudson's face lit up with pride. "That's a wonderful idea. You could make a real difference in people's lives." Elijah ran up to them, clutching a handful of dandelions. "For you, Mum," he said, presenting them with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster. Then he turned to Hudson. "And this one's for you, Dad." The word still brought tears to Tasha's eyes. Elijah had started calling Hudson Dad naturally, without prompting, about a month ago. Hudson had been so moved he had to excuse himself to compose his emotions. "Thank you, buddy," Hudson said, ruffling Elijah's hair. "How about we go get some ice cream after lunch?" "Can we go to the park too?" Elijah asked hopefully. "Of course we can," Tasha answered, no longer scanning the surroundings for threats or feeling the need to rush home before dark. Later that evening, as they sat on the patio watching the sunset, Tasha reflected on how far they'd come. The fear that had once consumed her had transformed into strength. The love she shared with Hudson wasn't born from desperation or need, but from mutual respect and understanding. "What are you thinking about?" Hudson asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "About how different life is now," she replied. "How safe I feel, how loved." Hudson took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "You deserve all of it and more. You and Elijah both." Inside, they could hear Elijah chattering away to Hudson's best friend, who had become a regular fixture in their lives. The sound of their laughter drifted through the open windows, a testament to the joy that now filled their home. This was what healing looked like, not the absence of scars, but the presence of love strong enough to make them fade. Tasha had found not just safety within these walls, but a future filled with possibilities. A future where love wasn't something to fear, but something to cherish and celebrate. The autumn leaves painted a vibrant backdrop as Hudson and Tasha strolled through their garden, fingers intertwined. 6 months had passed since Derek's final defeat in court, and each day brought new reasons to smile. "I've been thinking," Hudson said, stopping near the rose bushes where Elijah loved to play. He turned to face Tasha, his eyes filled with warmth. "About our future together." Tasha's heart skipped a beat as Hudson lowered himself to one knee. The morning sun caught the diamond ring he held, sending sparkles dancing across her vision. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice tender with emotion. Tears welled in Tasha's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." They planned an intimate ceremony in Hudson's, soon to be their garden. Tasha's close friend helped with the arrangements, her eyes misty as they chose flowers and discussed decorations. On their wedding day, 30 of their closest family and friends gathered under an arch of white roses. Elijah, beaming with pride, carried the rings down the aisle. He wore a miniature version of Hudson's tuxedo, drawing affectionate smiles from the guests. Tasha walked down the aisle in a simple ivory gown, her heart full of joy and certainty. Hudson's best friend stood beside him as best man, discreetly wiping away tears as the couple exchanged vows. "I promise to love and protect you and Elijah," Hudson said, his voice steady and sure. "To be your shelter in every storm and to celebrate every joy." Tasha's voice trembled slightly as she responded, "I promise to trust in our love, to face whatever comes together, and to fill our home with laughter and light." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Elijah rushed forward to hug them both, creating a perfect family embrace that drew happy tears from their guests. The evening sun cast golden rays through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Hudson's mansion, now their shared home. In the elegant dining room, crystal glasses sparkled, and the aroma of a home-cooked meal filled the air. Tasha had insisted on preparing dinner herself, a family tradition she wanted to establish in their new life together. Elijah sat between his mother and Hudson, his face glowing with happiness as he recounted his day at school. "And then Mrs. Thompson said my drawing of our family was the best in class," he exclaimed, reaching for another piece of garlic bread. Hudson caught Tasha's eye across the table, sharing a knowing smile. The simple joy of this moment, this ordinary family dinner, felt extraordinary after everything they'd been through. "I never thought I'd feel this peaceful again," Tasha said softly, reaching out to hold Hudson's hand across the table. Her wedding ring caught the light, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the white tablecloth. "We made it," Hudson replied, squeezing her hand gently. "Together." Elijah looked up at both of them, his eyes bright with contentment. "I love our family," he declared, prompting both adults to wrap him in a warm embrace. The kitchen timer chimed, signaling dessert was ready. As they gathered closer, sharing slices of warm apple pie, Tasha felt the last shadows of her past fade away. Here, in this moment, with her son and her husband, she was exactly where she was meant to be. Their love had conquered the darkness, and now their future stretched before them, bright with promise. Thank you for being here. If something in this story stayed with you, I'd love to see you again. Subscribe, and tomorrow, I'll bring you another story crafted with heart.